So I saw Dunki, directed by Rajkumar Hirani, a while ago. I think 4 5 hours ago, and I tried to gather my thoughts about the film. My initial thought after coming out of the theater was that it was an absolutely, yeah, it was an okayish film. The writing faltered big time over here, and I don't know if it is the exclusion of Vidhu Vinod Chopra from this film or not, but the difference between Rajkumar Hirani's previous films and this films is absolutely, it's visible very clearly, and it feels really bad looking at this film because Shah Rukh Khan was having a great year. I mean, for his films, no, but I think financially those films did really well, even though I didn't like both the films. Dunki is far better than Jawan or Pathan, but I don't think this is a film that people will want to watch in theaters or not. I mean, I'm not a trade expert so yeah, Dunki is a very averagely written film where acting does not stand out as much. I mean, Tapsi is obviously a brilliant actor and she's utilized really well. Um, okay, so Rajkumar Hirani has a very unique, I wouldn't say unique, but he has a way of writing a film where there's tragedy and there's comedy and there's tragedy and there's comedy and there's a good consistent part of it. You take a film like Sanju, which again I didn't like, it had some tonal consistency in the film. A film like Three Idiots, which I really love, had a tonal consistency, but in Dunki there is either the in the entirety of the first half, the comedy side of the film overpowers everything else, even though it has a terrific tragedy subplot in the film with Vicky Kaushal. It's beautifully done, beautifully written. The humor, especially, um, is beautifully done. Even though it has a ton of fat shaming, a ton of absolute misogynist savior sort of a thing, the damsel in distress situation sort of scenes, but we are not going to bat an eyelid on it because it is Rajkumar Hirani who's made the film, who's also Me Too accused person. But we turn a blind eye on it. We don't care for all of that. We only care of the fact that it is a Shah Rukh Khan's film and Shah Rukh Khan is an absolute sweetheart. So I think we should not talk of all that. We should let's just talk about the film. But दूसरे फिल्मों के लिए we'll bring all of these in, even though they don't exist. Yeah, I'm sorry for that really bad joke, but I really wanted to make it because I think the woke people of Twitter are in absolute crisis mode because they don't know if they want to appreciate the film or not. Because, yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, so why does the writing falter so much? So Rajkumar Hirani's humor, I feel, has sort of tried to die itself down, especially there's a fat shaming scene in the film, which is actually very obviously fat shaming. Where there's a scene where a lady, an overweight woman, comes and there's a guy who tells her, like the salesman tells her, कि आप जो size मांग रहे हैं वो size आपकी उंगलियों में भी fit नहीं आता है. People are laughing, and I think, and I have not seen a single person say it's uncomfortable, which it was uncomfortable for me. There are fat shaming scenes. There are scenes where Taapsee is like, ये मेरा बंदा है, and Shah Rukh Khan is like, मैं उसका बंदा हूँ. It's as if, so there are pretty problematic scenes. I mean, if you consider other scenes problematic and not this problematic, I mean the problem is with you. I'm really sorry for the absolute lame Twitter joke that I've said right now, but yeah. So the writing falters big time in the second half. There are scenes that happen. There's no depth or emotion behind it. It's like you're pushing an emotion, but there's no solid setup to it. There's an unnecessary, very unnecessary scene with Iranian army or Iranian border patrol where there's a sexual assault scene, which I feel was sort of insensitive, and it felt like a damsel in distress and then a savior comes sort of a scene where it's just there so that Taapsee can grow feelings for Shah Rukh Khan, and it's not there because it is a genuinely disturbing scene. It felt very cheap, to be honest. I mean, I'm being serious right now. That scene felt really cheap, and not because of the subject matter, which could have been handled sensitively, but this was handled in a massy way, which, in my opinion, should die because, I mean, yeah, प्यार करने के लिए a person doesn't need to hit 100 men or doesn't need to save a damsel in distress. I think that is still a very sort of an outdated sort of a trope. I mean, there are many outdated tropes in the film. There's a trope of cancer as well. The I don't feel like this is the Rajkumar Hirani film. Like even a film like Sanju, which is very obviously propaganda, I think even that has a lot of redeeming qualities about it. But I think Dunki has very little redeeming qualities, if I have to say so. The comedy scenes in the first half worked beautifully. The tragedy in the first half was brilliantly written, but the second half, I wouldn't say it drags itself, because yeah, it there's a lot of tonal shifting that happens without sort of telling us what's happening and what's not happening. They just happen, and we are supposed to we are supposed to be prepared. It's like we are supposed to be prepared for those tonal shifts, but those tonal shifts come in a way where it's too jarring for us. Especially there are scenes of them traveling, and then there's a song suddenly, and then there's something else, and then something else happens, and there's comedy out of nowhere, and there's seriousness out of nowhere. He did not. I don't know what happened to the writers in the second half, but it's like the comedy over, the serious over, the serious over, the comedy. There's no consistency in anything that happens in the second half, and that happens, and there's an absolutely and there's an absolutely outdated twist in towards the end of the film, and we are like, acha, now we have to see this also, and then we forget about that twist, and then we are suddenly reminded of Vicky Kaushal in the second half out of nowhere, without any consistency, without anything, just to create sympathy out of us. And then last night there's an entire sort of documentarian sort of thing where we're supposed to sympathize with whatever has happened, and I'm like, it's like you're pushing too much into the emotion zone while you're not building a strong. I mean, there's no strong base for the emotions that has been shown in the film. I think Rajkumar Hirani usually does it well. I don't know what has happened in this film, but again, I'm not being totally negative towards it. There are good points of this film as well, but because it is a Hirani film and you expect way too much out of him, it feels really bad when a film like that, a film with a lot of potential happens. Because there are beautiful scenes in the film, but you see those scenes and you are like, I wish this had a stronger base to it. I wish this had a stronger foundation to it. But the foundations are laid and they're forgotten and they're reminded after a long time, and that really was jarring for me, because there is no breather space in the film at all. Yet it feels very dragged and stuff like that. So are there not any positives in the film? Of course there are. Shah Rukh Khan is a good actor and we all know that. Acting was great throughout. The scenes, there are some scenes in the first half which are overly funny, and they're really good, they're really entertaining. The entire film itself is entertaining. It's a good film, but there are places that could have been better. When you see potential and it's lacking it feels really bad. I mean, it's a decent film. I mean, if you want to watch it, watch it. If you're not, I'm not going to tell anybody to watch a film or not, because again, this is my own personal view, and I try to be as subjective as I can. So thank you. I'll give Dunki a solid 3.25 and a 3. It's between 3 and 3.25. It's the weakest work of Rajkumar Hirani.